The deer are graceful, the deer are fleet, the deer are beautiful, they have tiny feet. They can jump fences, high or low, they are so wise, they know where to go. In other parts, men shoot and kill deer, but they needn't be afraid, they have nothing to fear here. To the deer, come to Catalina Island, you'll be safe here.
That poem was written by the granddaughter of William Wrigley Jr. The Wrigleys bought Catalina Island in 1919. Around 1930, the Wrigleys brought California mule deer to Catalina Island, which is just off the coast of Los Angeles County. In 1972, the Wrigleys created the Catalina Island Conservancy. Now that same conservancy has a plan to eradicate all the deer from the island. This story didn't start off as a documentary. In late 2023, I first heard that nearly 2,000 mule deer on Catalina Island could be eradicated, potentially shot from helicopters and left to rot. That stopped me cold. Not because I don't understand conservation, I do, and not because I'm opposed to managing wildlife, I'm certainly not. What I couldn't wrap my head around was how something that extreme could be justified without the public fully understanding how we got there. So I went to Catalina to find out what was actually going on.
Catalina Island has a mule deer problem.
The deer were brought to the island for hunting about 100 years ago and have overpopulated to nearly 2,000 according to the Catalina Island Conservancy.
They're mowing down rare plants and have no natural predators.
This is the uninhabited interior of the island where Conservancy officials say deer have wreaked havoc on the ecosystem by eating native plants.
The final plan? Shoot all the deer.
This documentary is not about whether deer should be managed. Everyone agrees that they should be. And it's not whether Catalina Island is unique. It is. What this film focuses on are two very specific questions, because everything else depends on them. First, how many deer are actually on the island? And second, did the hunting program really fail, or was it never designed to succeed in the first place?
Ready? Yep. Rolling?
This is Bill Gaines. He's handled wildlife policy in California for more than 30 years. Generally, he's not dramatic. He's not excitable. So when he reacts like this, you pay attention.
I got my first call. My wife and I were with the family in Hawaii on vacation. Mm-hmm. And I had my cell phone with me, and my phone rings, and it's one of their representatives going, "We want to sit down with you and talk about a proposal that we have on Catalina Island." Sat down, it was via Zoom, sat down with the representatives from the Conservancy. They had the pitch that they were going to give that night to the city council. They gave us that pitch, and at the end of it, Robbie, looks at them on their Zoom and goes, "Where's your science? You have no science." I mean, they were trying to pitch this thing with absolutely just kind of the trust me, type attitude. Right. We started building a very strong coalition to fight this thing. First of all, the locals. The locals, in Avalon, on Catalina were absolutely almost unanimously opposed to this. I mean, just seriously opposed to this. And so we got word out. They were well aware that this was being brought in front of the city council in early October of 2023. And they showed up in big numbers. So we had the locals that were very much opposed to it. Well, I reached out right away to all the wildlife groups that I work with, the ones I represent and the ones that I just partner with as well, and started building a coalition, of the wildlife groups in California. And within a matter of a week or two, we had pretty much unanimous opposition across every wildlife conservation, organization, in the state. Humane Society normally is not an organization that we partner with on stuff, I mean, they're typically against hunting, and I represent a lot of hunting organizations, right? We're partnering with the local Humane Society on this, and a variety of other local environmental organizations that we normally don't partner with on stuff. Right. So when you can pull together partnerships like that, that gets the attention of a lot of decision makers. They're going, whoa, the hunting groups are partnering with the Humane Society and what have you. And we were able to do that on this issue.
I think it's inhumane. I think it's unnecessary. I think it's dangerous. and I think it's immoral.
Just doesn't make sense on many levels, and we have a long tradition here of people who feel passionately connected to the land, who have a long tradition of ethically hunting on the land, and we just feel that we need to fight that decisions are made in a responsible, ethical, and thorough manner going forward for the deer of Catalina.
I'm not in favor of it at all. I can get behind something that I understand and agree with. There isn't any agreeing with it when they tell me a plant's endangered and then I see it a lot.
Okay, so right now we're about midway through 2024, and the plan to use sharpshooters from helicopters had just been put on pause. Huge victory for everybody, but we still didn't really know what was next. My friend William, who you had just met, reached out and he said, "What can I do to help? Is there anything I can do?" I said, it'd be great to talk to the Conservancy. It seems like the right thing to do. So he actually made a call to Dr. Denhart, and she agreed to meet with us. So we reached out to her. We set up a date and time. And in October of 2024, we went out there and spent several hours with the Conservancy, and that's what you're about to see. This is Dr. Lauren Denhart. She's the Senior Director of Conservation at the Catalina Island Conservancy. She's the person most responsible for assessing the island's habitat, its plants, its wildlife, and the pressures they face. She holds the scientific authority behind the Conservancy's deer eradication proposal, and for many people on the island, this is the first time they've seen her speak in depth about it.
Catalina Island is a remarkable place. As you guys know, it's fairly easy to get here, and it's really just one of the most amazing treasures that Southern California has to offer. So the Catalina Island Conservancy's mission is to be an exemplary steward of island resources through a balance of conservation, education, and recreation. So you've been in the interior before, but let me kind of highlight the uniqueness of the situation, because this is not something that someone dreamed up overnight. This is decades in the making and a lot of failed attempts at reducing deer populations through hunting.
Before we go further, you need to meet Ben Myrie. Ben has a wildlife biology degree and has been the primary guide and outfitter on Catalina Island for decades. Unless you are local, if you hunted here, you probably hunted with Ben. He worked inside the hunting program the Conservancy now says never worked. So when he challenges the population estimates and the claim that hunting failed, he's speaking from direct experience.
In my mind, the hunting program has done a great job of reducing the deer. There were a lot of deer out there back late 90s, early 2000s. There was a lot of deer back when we came back in 2011 after the Conservancy did their hunts, because they didn't kill many in 2009 and 10.
From the very beginning, the population number is the foundation of the Conservancy's argument. If there are truly 1,800 deer on Catalina, then every claim about browsing pressure, fire risk, and ecological collapse rests on that baseline. But there's a problem. Most of the people we spoke with who spent their lives on the island say that the number isn't just wrong, they say it's not even close.
So there are currently about 1,800 deer on the island, according to our spotlight surveys. And spotlight surveys are definitely very good estimates of deer population numbers. And we've had those independently verified. They've been peer reviewed and published in the literature. CDFW's gotten the raw data on those and has confirmed that those are accurate as well.
Do you agree with their population number that there's somewhere around 2,000 deer on the island?
Not even close.
Not even close.
I don't even think there's been 2,000 all the years I've been out there. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Maybe pushing it.
Do you even want to say?
I think it's in the hundreds.
So less than 1,000.
Yeah. When they would come up with their population surveys every year, I'd try to get the data on that, and they'd tell me, "Oh, we got 2,000 deer, whatever." So I go, "Here's what I do," and I told them in meetings, I take your number, I cut it in half, and then I still subtract a couple hundred more. That's how I base how many deer I think are out here, just by what we see, because we're in the field every day.
We've never felt comfortable with their numbers, especially when I go out and I talk to these people that are doing the counts, and they give me a number. And then I find out the number that the head of the conservancy at the time turned in, and it was twice as much.
I mean, you know, Department of Fish and Wildlife is doing some surveys, whether it be deer, elk, or whatever, in some areas that are really hard to do surveys in, right? Yeah. Catalina's not one of them. Yeah. I mean, you've got an island that's limited in size, a lot of open country, right? I mean, it would be very easy with the technology that we have today, drones and so forth, to get a really, you know, good deer count that's got a 95% confidence level or something like that.
So I've been on the spotlight surveys and I've seen the drone footage of the drone surveys. They're not even in the same league. I did a map a few years ago with a friend of mine. He did it for me that had 1,800 deer on the island. Now, the island when we hunt is split into 4 zones, zone 1 through 4. Zone 1 being the west end, zone 2 being from Two Harbors on over towards the airport. Then zone 3 is all of the midsection of the island. And then zone 4 is the last part of the island on the east end. So each of these zones with 1,800 deer has 450 dots in there to show the number of deer on the island in there. Now, I know on the west end of the island that there are not 450 deer out there. That would be crazy. So which means I would say there's probably 150 deer on that end of the island. I might be overstating that. That means 300 need to be dumped back into this side. So another 100 in each zone over here. So that just goes to show how many deer that they think are out there and that I don't believe are out there. And if you look at this paperwork here, there's 450 dots per zone, 1,800 total. The entire island is approximately 76 square miles. Each grid, or in those little squares, is 1/10 of a square mile. So you have 23.68 deer per square mile, or 2.36 deer per 1/10 of a square mile. So you're gonna tell me that there's that many deer on the island? I don't think so.
By now you've heard it from several people on the island. The population estimate doesn't add up for them. Some think the Conservancy's number is far too high. Others think the deer are clustered in a few pockets and nearly absent in the interior. And honestly, whether the island has 900 deer, or 1,200, or 2,500 doesn't change my position on eradication. What matters is this. We're talking about wiping out an entire species from an island, and the method being used to justify that decision is 3 nights of spotlighting on fixed road routes. A technique wildlife scientists have repeatedly shown to be biased, inconsistent, and unreliable for precise population estimates. I'm not looking for a number to win an argument. I'm looking for a number that is real. Because if the true population is lower than claimed, then decades of the hunting program may have actually worked. And if the true number is higher, then we deserve a management plan based on reality, not guesswork. That's where thermal drones come in. Modern wildlife surveys using thermal imaging because it detects more animals, reduces bias from terrain and vegetation, and creates the kind of accuracy you need when the consequences are permanent. So we brought a team here in 2024 to test that approach. They covered just 9% of the island in really just a few hours. And what they found confirmed what people on the ground have been saying for years. Some basins held almost no deer, some held a few, and a handful of pockets held more. A mosaic, not a blanket. Before you eradicate every deer on Catalina, the Conservancy owes the island and the science a real count. So when I interviewed the Conservancy, I asked them if we could use thermal drones so we could get a more accurate count of the deer that are actually on the island. And Dr. Denhart said that she wasn't interested because CDFW uses spotlight surveys, and as long as they're okay with spotlight surveys, then they don't see any reason to use any other method. With an issue as big as this one, we need to be using the best technology available.
We're definitely picking up deer, but I don't know that there's 1,700 deer on here. I mean, that sounds a little ridiculous to me. Yeah, this was easy to cover acres and be 100% confident with what I'm seeing. You can see that that's 2 deer laying pretty clearly. 1, 2. Oh, it's one. Look, he's in some thick stuff. That's his face, his ear, and his antlers. So let me add this up before we get moving here. I want to see what I've done. I did 147 flat acres on this section, 276 on the other section, 16 deer, 1 square mile. Let's see how many acres we flew and see. 0 deer. Jeez. Yeah, that was 215 acres with nothing. Right here they are. Let's take a peek, shall we? The buck deer. There's a good bit of deer out there. Good visibility. Buck. More. So those are all bucks. You see them running away? 1, 2, 3 bucks. This looks really big. It's Mike Bison!
Yeah.
Just keep this overcast for another hour or so, I'd feel better about it.
Yeah.
You know, just to get a little bit more covered. Yeah, just not much up in there. If you want to get an accurate number, you with how this island is, you do it at night, do it in clear nights, and you get, you know, a team of 10, 15 guys out here, and we cover half the island in one night, easy.
We've shown why many people, guides, locals, wildlife professionals, disagree with how the deer are counted on Catalina Island. And if the real number is closer to 1,000, then the hunting program may have worked better than anyone on the Conservancy has admitted. But for the rest of the film, we're going to accept the Conservancy's number. Let's just assume that there are 1,800 deer on the island. Next, we need to hear the Conservancy's case. Not about how many deer are on the island, but what they feel the deer are doing to the island. This is where their argument really begins.
When the goat eradication happened here on the island, have you heard about the goat and pig eradication?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. When was that, by the way? How long?
So you're talking about the goats were first. It started back in the 80s. They tried doing a cull. That didn't work, so they went for an eradication.
And how many goats were on the island, do you know?
Tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands of goats?
Yes.
And then they did pigs too, right?
Yep.
Do you know how many pigs there were?
Not off the top of my head right now, but I have that information and I can provide it. It's a lot.
There was a lot.
It was a lot.
Okay.
So the pig eradication occurred, that was completed by 2007 about. It's getting the last couple animals that's the real challenge. So most of it was done by 2004.
When were the deer brought here? Let's just start with that. What year was that?
Yeah, so that would have been 1929, 1930.
What was here before that? Was there was livestock here and horses and
sheep?
Sheep was
so
here? Okay.
Before the deer, there were sheep and they were actually removed from the island in 1920.
Okay, the sheep were?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the island just couldn't sustain them, right?
Yeah.
There were cattle.
Okay.
Those were completely removed about 1954.
Okay.
Let's see.
Was it just a moonscape then? I mean,
yeah.
It had to have been, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of complexities here.
Sure.
That's why it's such a challenge to communicate all the pieces here.
Right.
Because there's a big story here.
With goats and sheep and cattle and bison and deer and pigs. Is there anything else?
Actually, there were barberry sheep.
Was there? Okay.
There were white-tailed deer.
There was white-tailed deer?
Yeah, they didn't make it.
Really?
Yeah, they died off almost immediately.
When was that?
It was really early 1900s. Yeah.
And they didn't make it because they usually, that's
they
interesting.
Died.
I never even heard of that.
No, they have like all these on records. There were barberry sheep. There were black buck antelope.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, they didn't really make it. Yeah, that's all.
That's just on Catalina, exactly, yeah. If you've gotten rid of all those other species, isn't the island in some way getting better?
Yes,
okay.
It has gotten better.
Ladies and gentlemen, we agree on something. And even Ben agrees.
It's changed so much since 1998. What I really need to do is go back better. Yeah. I mean, I can tell every year, like go up there, because we hit almost every road out there that we can get a vehicle through. Yeah. And the growth that is coming into the roads that used to be that these roads were easy to drive through, not scraping your truck up now, are just hard to get through anymore because of the vegetation that's growing. The island looks so much better than it ever used to look. It's got, not that it was that horrible way back when, but it's a lot better now. Right. And there's just less pressure on it. I know there is.
Yeah.
The places where we used to see a lot of deer, you just don't see them anymore. It's growing, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
So we found something we can all agree on. The island has gotten better. But let's go back and listen to what the rest of Dr. Denhart has to say.
If you've gotten rid of all those other species, isn't the island in some way getting better?
Yes,
Okay.
it has gotten better, but
Okay.
it has only gotten to a degree.
What's the baseline? Like, what are you trying to get to? What's the?
Yeah.
You have the baseline.
We're aiming for, because this is a long time in the making with a lot of minds on this.
Certainly, yeah.
So what we're aiming for is a much more resilient island. We're not going back to what it was. That's impossible with climate change. But what we
and
do,
people live here and there's cars and this is different.
So by what you're kind of getting at is something that we know, which is, sorry, I hit this, is that this is one of the hardest, most complicated island restoration projects that's been in human memory.
Okay, so this is a really important part of the story. The island has gotten significantly better because of the removal of all the livestock. But the deer are still here, and the deer are holding it at a certain point, according to the Conservancy. So let's dig into that. We're going to be moving into areas known as exclosures. They're basically just fenced off pieces of land, as Dr. Denhart explains.
This is our exclosure that we bring a lot of people to, because that's our vision of what the island could be.
Yep.
When you plant a native plant, for the first couple of years, you plant it, and then you're done. It's just to get it established. But here, we did a few plantings just right at the beginning, just to demonstrate what restoration would look like without cages. And then the rest of it, so everything beyond there, is just what happens naturally.
Okay.
So there's some exclosures, like the one at Summit Garden, that's completely manicured, and that's completely planted in to show basically every one of our endemic species.
Yep.
But the vast majority of them, it's really just a fence and that's it.
Yep.
And the vast majority of this one is just a fence.
Okay.
So a few plantings at the beginning, but that's about it.
Also means that, okay.
Okay, so every native
Yep.
means that it's found naturally here.
Yep.
Endemic is a special subcategory of native, which means it's unique to a location too. It means that if you want to see, this is an endemic, if you want to see a Trask cirbasanta, the only place you can see a Trask cirbasanta is here on Catalina Island. If you lose it, and there's only 2 populations of this plant in high quantities here and at the middle fire exclosures, if they go away here, they don't exist on the planet anymore.
And how many species are only Catalina?
60.
Well, how many are the animals?
Most of them are animals. Most of them are insects.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking plants. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. How many plants do you know? Just to Catalina?
I think it's 12.
It's 12. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and the reason I say I think is because so there's some new ones being described as unique to Catalina only. It's just not official yet. We have seedlings.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get seedlings in other parts of the island. And these are California lilac seedlings too, which we don't get outside of these exclosures. But here we see that, this is starting to come up, and we'll actually have more here in like 10, 20 years, which is a big deal.
How much of that problem is because of this landscape having so much livestock and different animals on it over the years? Like the problem that this doesn't exist outside of the exclosure is...
Well, the fact that this is doing this now means that the problem's being held in place by the deer at this point. Because you can see it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, but outside the exclosures, we're not getting that effect. So the way that someone else came up with this, but the way that you can think about it is essentially like the overgrazing, overbrowsing that's occurred for the last 100 years basically brought the island to its knees, and the deer are just sort of holding it at that level. It's not that we hate deer, it's just we want to make sure that this place stays beautiful and accessible and resilient for the future that's coming, for future generations so they can enjoy it.
Lauren's position is that aside from a few early plantings, what grows here is natural regeneration. Evidence, she says, that deer browsing is the only thing stopping the rest of the island from looking like this.
Okay, so these plants that you're showing me here, they do exist outside of the exclosure, right?
Not much, though.
Not much. Do you know what, do you have any idea what percentage or what's?
What I will tell you is this does not exist anywhere outside of the exclosure, this ecosystem as a whole.
As a whole to this, I don't know, lushness, I guess, or whatever, right?
The Channel Islands tree poppy
Yep.
only exists on high cliffs where deer can't access or exclosures. The Channel Islands California lilac really exists at much lower density compared to inside the exclosures. This amount of biodiversity, this amount of resilience does not exist outside of the exclosures, like point blank. Yeah.
To this amount, I get that.
Yeah, like this is lush compared to what we
Yep.
see otherwise.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it does exist to some level.
A small,
well, when it gets above the browse line, I mean, obviously that's going to exist, right? It's just not everything.
Yes,
but then you have
you're
problems
not
growing
having
it.
seedlings start to replace it.
Exactly, without fencing it in and.
Let's keep going because I have other things. The knowns here are that if we keep the deer, our ecosystem will not exist, in 100 or 200 years.
All right, so let's talk about what we just went over with Dr. Denhart. The livestock have been on the island for over 100 years, and the deer have been there right along with them for 100 years. And she says that the island used to look like a moonscape, meaning no vegetation, similar to the moon is what that means, really. And that the island has gotten a lot better. She says that, Ben says that, but the deer are holding it at a certain level. And then, as she says toward the end there, if the deer stay there on the island, then the ecosystem's going to go away. This is what I'm having a hard time understanding. So if the deer and the livestock existed, 50, 60 years ago, whatever, and it was a moonscape, like let's say this is a moonscape here, down here, right? And this is full vegetation. So a moonscape got rid of all the livestock, the deer still remain with the bison, and it's improved to whatever level, right? But now if we keep the deer, so all the livestock are gone, but we keep the deer and the bison that have been there the entire time, the ecosystem's going to collapse. So it's going to go back down. And yeah, I agree. Of course, inside of the exclosure, the area is going to look completely different. There's no people in there. There's no vehicles in there. There's no deer in there. And there's no bison in there. So of course, it's going to be more lush. And yes, outside of the exclosure, a fenced-in area, the area is going to look different because you have people and you have vehicles and you have deer and you have bison. That makes sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me how keeping the deer is going to collapse the ecosystem on the outside of the exclosures when it's improved so much. But if you noticed, when I asked her about what the percentage of endemic species that exists outside of the exclosure, she didn't answer that question. And she does this a few times throughout this entire interview. She just kind of cuts me off or moves on to the next subject. But I think it's really important to know how much of the endemic species actually exists outside of the exclosures. The locals are telling me they see it everywhere. Ben, the guide, tells me that he sees it everywhere. But at the end of the day, I just don't get how it's gotten better and we keep the deer there and it's going to get worse. That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it makes sense to you. Doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so one of the claims from the Conservancy is that wildfire risks are becoming more severe due to the mule deer being on the island. Let's dig into this one.
So at the root of this is about creating a safer, climate resilient island here. But there's a lot of components here. This is not about saving a few individual plants. This is about saving the habitat for all the wildlife we have here. This is about fog capture and water resources, and it's about fire resiliency. We've done research recently, and we're working on getting it published on the interactions between fire, drought, and deer. And what we know is that when we do have a fire on the island, the deer halt the recovery of the vegetation that we have here. But this is not a story about plants, because you can hear it, well, you and I can hear it, I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but you can hear animals moving around in here. This is really good habitat for the Catalina Island quail, the Catalina Island Hutton's vireo, which only exists here and relies on these oaks in here.
What was that?
Catalina Island Hutton's vireo, type of bird.
It's a bird, okay.
Yeah. This is great habitat for the Catalina Island fox. One of our scientists did research, and the Catalina Island fox really needs this island chaparral habitat in order to succeed. It does not do well in invasive annual grasslands. But more importantly is this is a lot more fire resilient. So when you're talking about the island as a whole, this is not going to burn as readily. You're talking about a burn cycle of once every 200 years versus those invasive annual grasslands that we saw, or the flax leaf broom. So the change that you'd see on the island's landscape, unless if we reverse these trends, is going to be pretty dramatic. And we're at a point right now where we can reverse those trends if we are able to complete this island restoration project.
So when you're talking about fire resistance and
Resilience, yeah.
resilience and burn cycles, here's how I'm thinking of it. If a fire starts, a fire starts, right?
Yep.
That's just not gonna burn as easily? Is that what you're saying? I mean, obviously the grasslands are gonna go right up.
They're gonna go
right?
up fast and hard.
They're gonna go up super fast.
Yeah.
When the fire reaches this,
It's gonna slow it down.
What, for 2 seconds? It's California, it burns hot. That's not gonna do anything. It's not gonna slow it down for an hour to get a helicopter in there to put the fire out. That's not gonna happen. California burns, it's a Mediterranean climate. That's what it does. I mean, that's what scares me more than anything. You're gonna remove what's left of the browsers for that, especially the city of Avalon, where the margin of the brush right up to the city is right there right now. We get a major wind event and a fire gets started, you're not gonna stop that. I don't care how many fireproof plants you have out there, it's gonna burn. That's what it does. So, God, I hope it never happens. I do not want to see the town of Avalon ever get to that, or any parts of the island burn that way. But you're taking away, you already took the goats away, now you're gonna take the deer away, and saying that actually taking the deer away actually make the island safer from fire. That's what's ludicrous. That makes no sense. And I don't think there's a fireman on the planet that would go, well, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's let the brush grow up, because these are all fire resistant plants.
And the Los Angeles County Fire Chief himself said, that's not true. I mean, deer are browsers. They're browsing down, whether it be non-native, and there's a lot of non-native grasses there now that the deer are getting the blame for, right? Yeah. But they're browsing down whatever they may be, whatever they're feeding on, to lower the fire danger.
Here's the truth. It's complicated, and we're going to leave it complicated. The Conservancy points to studies showing that certain shrubs can slow fire behavior under specific conditions. And that science exists. It shouldn't be dismissed. But there's also a growing body of research, including a 2024 peer-reviewed study in Ecological Applications, showing that in Mediterranean-type ecosystems, much like Catalina, large herbivores, such as deer, reduce wildfire risk by consuming grasses and shrubs that otherwise become fuel. We've seen this play out in real time across California. Goats are routinely used on the mainland as a fire mitigation tool, deliberately placed in high-risk areas to reduce fuels. On Catalina, tens of thousands of goats were eradicated more than 20 years ago. Now the focus has shifted to deer. So when recent California wildfires are invoked, when fear is raised around what might happen if deer remain, it's worth asking whether that's science or storytelling. Because fire in California is driven by drought, wind, weather, ignition sources, and decades of land use decisions, not a single species. And here's the question that doesn't get asked enough. If the deer are removed and the island still burns, who do we blame then?
I wish there was a future where you could keep the deer here, but from every piece of information I've read, all the information I've taken in, all the scientific consensus, all the people that we've worked with, it's just you can't keep that population down to a low level because these deer are so heavily trained to avoid hunters. And when you have a smaller number of deer avoiding hunters and hunters aren't getting good take out here, you're going to lose that interest in the hunting season, and the population is going to rebound really fast. I'm not anti-hunter, and I'm very pro-animal, obviously.
Yep.
I mean, a huge part of my job is making sure the Catalina Island fox doesn't go extinct. It's understanding the Catalina Island Hunting's vireo, the insect populations on this island, all those things we really care about here. It's making sure the Catalina Island shrew doesn't go extinct. But when you look at the entire picture, you realize that you're in a situation where you've got one invasive animal that's quite honestly not doing that well here. It's really for the benefit of people against everything else that we have on this island.
The deer aren't doing well here?
Yeah.
As far as the health go of the deer on the island, I think they're in great healthy shape. That's not true at all that they're unhealthy. The deer in the interior are doing what I think are outstanding. I mean, yes, you have some older looking deer because some are going to die of old age. They're going to age out. They're not going to look that good, which tells me that there are less deer on the island than there used to be, because even in these last couple of years, we've had a lot of rain. Years previous to that, where it gets a little droughty out there, and you would see a decline in the past and when there was a lot more deer out there and their health. But now there just seems to be enough browse and enough feed for them that they stay in great condition. I mean, those bucks usually pre-rut, when we first get out there and start hunting them, they'll have an inch of fat on their back. And that wears off, of course, as the rut goes on. But when we first get there, I'm always so surprised how healthy they're maintaining themselves, even when I'm like, it's pretty dry out here, and they were still doing really well. So last year, one of my guides who comes from Texas, and he hunted a lot on Santa Rosa with us, and we're good friends. After a hunt was over, we were just having lunch down at one of the local spots, and Jeff Rusak happened to be in there with a couple individuals having lunch. And Tim knows people, they know people in that they socialize together from Santa Barbara. And so Tim went to say hi to Jeff and just chat with him a little bit. And as Tim was finishing the conversation, he said, "Hey, just to let you know, man, the deer are really healthy on the island this year. They look great." And Jeff, he put his finger up to his lips and said, "Shh." And Tim came back kind of puzzled over that. He goes, "What was that all about?" And I go, apparently he doesn't want everybody knowing the narrative. He wants a narrative that the deer aren't healthy and need to be gone. I don't know. I'm assuming that's what it is, because why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just go, "Well, that's great to hear," instead of shushing somebody? So,
Allison Rusak, there has been a lot of talk about that's who's really pulling the strings here. She doesn't want the deer here. She has a vineyard. She wants to expand the vineyard. She doesn't want a deer fence, and that they want to, the Rusaks or whoever, want to develop buildings, I don't know, apartments, whatever, on the island. What is any of this true? Do you have any insight into any of this whatsoever?
Yes,
Okay.
I do have insight, and no, it is not true.
Okay.
This is truly a science-driven project. We scientists are the ones that advocated for it. This is truly just to fulfill the conservation mission. And we brought you by, there is a inholding that the Wrigley Rusak family has on the island that is not managed by the Conservancy. The Conservancy owns and manages 88% of the island, not the whole island.
Fair enough, but there's another layer to this conversation that locals bring up again and again. So I want to read you something off of a website. It's SaveTheCatalinaIslandDeer.com, and this kind of digs into the Wrigley's involvement on the island and with the Conservancy itself. So what you'll see here is Allison Wrigley Rusak. She's the daughter of William Bill Wrigley. She's chairman of the board of the Catalina Island Company. Her husband, Jeff Rusak, is president and CEO, and their son, Hunter, is director of operations. Now, that's of the Catalina Island Company. Allison Wrigley Rusak is the permanent chair of the Catalina Island Conservancy benefactor members. Her involvement with the Conservancy is supported by her son, Austin, and her cousin, Blanny, who are both on the board of directors, as is her second cousin, Kaylin Offield. Not sure I'm saying that right. Blanny's brother, Will, is past chairman of the Conservancy's board of directors. So I think it's just worth pointing out that there's members of the Wrigley family that are deeply involved with the Conservancy and also with the Island Company as well. And it's just, it's fair to point out they have some level of influence on what's going on the island.
And then the bison were brought in
1924 for a movie.
for a movie.
Yeah.
And they're still here.
They're not reproducing though.
At all.
Mm-mm.
Someday their number will be 0.
Potentially. But the...
I mean, they would have to be though, right? Wouldn't they?
Yeah.
It'd have to be 0, or no?
I mean, potentially, right? Like, yeah. Unless something bizarre happens, right, with reproduction.
Can we go into that? I feel like you're uncomfortable talking about that. Is that a? What's the question? Well, the bison will be 0 one day.
I would say at this juncture, we are focused on, we are a conservancy of about 100 people, and we manage this 42,000 acres.
Yep.
And as you know, the deer project alone is a massive undertaking, and that's really where we're having to focus all of our attention and resources at this moment before we take on, considering other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It always comes up.
Yeah.
I always hear it. Like
they're a huge part. They're a huge part of the identity of the island. We're focused on the deer right now.
And I see that when I come into to Long Beach. There's a big bison there, and bison are advertised and all that. Obviously, it is a tourist attraction.
Okay, I don't know what that was. That was awkward. That was weird. I asked a simple question. I said, "Are the bison numbers going to be 0 someday?" The simple answer would have been yes. The most obvious answer would have been yes, because they're not reproducing anymore. But that's not the answer that I got. All right, so a little context here. So the bison were given a shot. The cow bison, the female bisons were given a shot so they can't reproduce. Typically, from what I understand, that can actually be reversed. So if they do want them to reproduce again, that can be reversed. What I'm told is that they were given way too much. It's been told to me that they were fried. So they can't reproduce anymore. There's no way that they can reverse that. So again, the simple answer that I think the Conservancy could have given us there is, yeah, the number's going to be 0 someday. What I have heard is that there is a plan in place, and whether they're going to take advantage of it or not, I'm not sure, that they can bring bison, some cows from the mainland, bring them over to Catalina Island, and then they can reproduce with the bulls there. So then the number will be, whatever number they want it to be. I'm not sure, and if that's what it is, that's fine. Like, okay, that's fine, but say that. That's just what doesn't make any sense to me. And given their response and the awkwardness of the whole thing, it kind of leads me to believe maybe that's the case. This whole interaction just, I'm not really sure how to take it. It was the weirdest part of this whole interview, I think. I don't know. What do you think? Okay, so we just covered the effects of the deer on the island, the fire risk of the deer on the island, the health of the deer on the island, bison on the island. Now we're going to talk about the hunting program.
How has it been lately? The last few years, more rainfall.
There's been. Well, you know that with climate change, we're seeing much more extremes. So you'll have like these really intense, heavy rain years, which was the last 2 years, and then very long periods of drought.
Yeah.
So we're about to head into a drought right now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the deer populations from year to year, when you go from drought years to not, are you seeing a huge?
Yes.
You are.
That is the number one indicator of the deer population is drought. Hunting has not made an effect.
Right. Well, we can talk about that later, I think I know why, but why hunting hasn't taken an effect.
Well,
but,
I've been studying this for 4 years, so bring it on.
When she says deer hunting has no effect on the deer population, that in my mind is completely false. Any biologist would look at that and go, that's completely false. Just taking a few deer out has an effect, but the number we take out is even a greater effect, especially during the dry years. I mean, your fawn production coming from your does is going to be less. Your fawn recruitment is going to be less because they're not going to survive in those dry years if there's not enough feed for them. So you'll see a doe that has twins, and over time if they're just not getting the feed that they need, the doe to produce the milk for those two fawns, one's going to look a little healthier than the other one, and pretty soon you're only going to see one fawn with that doe.
Here the contradiction is clear. If drought is the primary limit on deer, and it is, then hunting becomes even more effective, not less. Removing females during dry years has outsized impact on fawn survival and recruitment. This isn't hunter opinion. That's basic ungulate biology. So now we're talking about the hunting program itself. And this is where the numbers really matter. Because if the Conservancy's population estimate is correct, and the goal is to significantly reduce deer numbers, then the only way to do that is by taking more does. That's wildlife management 101. So I start to say exactly that, and she cuts me off.
Which if you really want to get your...
And we've done that for 10 years.
Okay.
We require people to do does first.
That answer sounded definitive, until we asked the one person who would actually know what's happening on the ground.
To say that everybody that hunted out there was required to shoot a doe before they could shoot a buck was not true at all. That was not a stipulation for Wildlife West. I mean, we carried 60 to 70% of the success rate on the tags as the outfitter for the success of the program, but we were not required at all to make our guys shoot does. We encouraged them to shoot does if they could, but we were not required to do that. Just the locals and any off-islanders way back were required. This last year, that was not a requirement by anybody. They were just got to go shoot does or shoot deer last year.
This is where facts matter most. If doe first harvest was the backbone of the program, the outfitter responsible for 60 to 70% of all successful hunters would know. But Ben didn't just say it wasn't enforced. He said it wasn't even true. And if doe harvest wasn't systematically required across the program, then the Conservancy's claim that hunting didn't work becomes circular. It didn't work because they never structured it to.
So the Conservancy and Lauren have always said that the hunting program does not work. And that's based on a false premise, in my opinion. I mean, we've never had the access that we need for other hunters to get out there. There's never been enough tags to achieve that goal. And we've never had a clear population goal to get this job done with the PLM program. The ceiling was wrong. And they finally, in 2024, gave that opportunity. They said, we're going to stuff this place full of hunters. We're going to get 1,000 tags. They used 750. That was successful. Killed the most deer in a long, long time out there. And then we get to 2025 and they take that away and go back to just 100 tags. And why did they do that? They took away the tool that worked last year that was showing that this could be done. Now it's gone.
Okay, so there's a lot of details here to this hunting program. So you really need to pay attention to this one. To do that, let's go to the classroom. Let's have Dr. Robbie Kroger explain this to you.
The Catalina Island Conservancy has made it very clear that eradication of mule deer on Catalina Island is the only objective. With a strong position like that, you would have expected the Conservancy to do everything in their power to understand a management program and how it has failed that has led them to a point of eradication. Well, in fact, the opposite is true. So let me spell it out. Catalina Island is enrolled in what they call the Private Lands Management Program, the PLM program. The PLM program is a deer management program. not an eradication program. The PLM program can offer tag strategies if a desired private landowner brings forward ideals, goals, population objectives that the PLM strategy can morph itself to. The Conservancy has noted that they have between 1,800 and 2,200 deer on Catalina Island. How have they figured that out? They employed a technique that is not the most scientifically rigorous methodology for population estimates. They did spot counts at night using spotlights on specific road segments and extrapolated those numbers across the entire island to determine the population estimate for the island writ large. So over the last 15 years, what's happened? Annually, there were between 400 and 500 tags given. Hunter harvest rate on average was 67%. Of that 240 deer per year, about 120 to 150 were females. With that program in place, deer populations have stayed about the same over time, suggesting a 13 to 18% offtake keeps the mule deer population on Catalina Island stable. In 2024, in an effort to reduce deer densities, 1,000 PLM tags were offered. Remember, that's double the amount of previous years. Of the 1,000 tags, 754 tags were utilized and 379 deer were taken, the highest amount of deer taken in 15 years, i.e. about 22% of the population. The success in 2024 proves that a hunting management model to reduce deer densities is possible and probable. However, the PLM program and hunting was closed in 2025. In fact, in 2024, the season where offtake of deer was the highest, the Conservancy claimed it was a failure. So what's the issue here? The idea that the Conservancy is claiming that hunting was put in place to reduce deer population numbers or densities is actually untrue. How do I know that to be true? Simple. There was never a stated goal to reduce deer numbers to 250, 500. It was never stated. If you were truly interested in reducing deer numbers, the Conservancy would have implemented a multi-year harvest model focusing on females only to successfully reduce the deer population. The 2024 numbers, i.e. increased tags equals increased harvest, proved true. And lastly, so the only logical conclusion, the eradication model that's being promulgated is not based on a trial and error of a hunting management model. The data shows that that was never the intent. It's simply an expensive exercise to reduce a resource that would then be wasted on the side of the mountain.
So for the Conservancy, eradication is still on the table. That's what you want.
It's still on the table, absolutely. We're working with a lot more partners. Well, we've always worked with a lot more partners, but it's getting wider and wider, the partnerships that we have in this, because it is, I mean, quite frankly, it is a little bit of a political issue too. We're prioritizing other methodologies other than the helicopter. We're really trying to do our best to hear the public and find the best path forward to a solution here.
Can you give me another alternative besides the helicopter?
I mean, we're using 1,000 tags for recreational hunting this year.
Yep.
We're already doing that. But you can also use professional on-the-ground hunters.
I'm insulted as a hunter to have somebody that's coming in, being paid just to shoot something, and to make matters worse, just let it lie. Right? I mean, I mean that is not hunting. It's like when I hear in the newspaper or on the news, they'll say a hunter's illegally killed this. Those aren't hunters. Those are poachers. Right? I mean, totally different thing.
I'm Diane Stone. I've been on the island for 30 plus years, and I am with the Catalina Island Humane Society. I have grown up in the Midwest with hunting as part of my family, but I feel that hunting legitimately, honorably, honestly, with the values that true hunters have, is the legitimate way to keep the herd under control.
So I said, well, if you're going to go ahead with this plan, I assume you're going to try to recover as much meat as possible. They're like, no, we're not going to do that. And I said, you're making a big, big mistake there. I go, the public perception of this is going to be one thing, and that's going to be a horrible component of that, to waste all of that meat, to leave it rot and not go to any use. If you use hunters to do this, which we did last year had more people out there hunting, a lot of meat, that was 379 deer that were killed, were utilized by somebody. And that can be done. We showed last year that we can bump this up and take more deer off the island to reach a goal and use the meat. And that is important. To me, it's important to everybody. It's just that goes against everything hunters are about.
So what bothers me the most about this plan is if it goes forward, the deer are going to be left to rot. I'm a hunter. I eat wild game almost every day of the week. It's a part of my life, and it has been for a long time. So I want to show you something a little different. You know, up till now, we've been talking about deer in numbers and on graphs and abstracts and all that. Let's bring this back to the real world here. We have eradication being proposed, and we have hunting being an option on Catalina Island. And I want to show you what a real hunt looks like and what we actually do with the meat. This is Danny Bolton. He's a hunter, he's a father, he's a fisherman. He does it all.
Appreciating where we are. Just camped right. I mean, like the sailboat's over here. So rad. Like 3 days of travel to get here. We are up to 9 does, I believe, and 0 bucks. Honestly, I told the boys if there was any does within 100 or any deer within 100, we were gonna capitalize on it. If it was like if we knew we can get a good shot, that's really the most important thing for me, is making a good shot. Helping out the conservation out here, they want less deer, and that's killing does. And so I just double checked with Ryan, and he was saying that there really isn't a situation where year over year reducing buck numbers is going to have a greater impact unless you do so in a way that is 60% of the does. So that was rough math, is what he was saying, but basically does are the way to go to limit the population. Here we go, boys. Mule deer, Catalina mule deer chops. Pretty psyched. Gonna get the saltwater brine, the seawater saltwater brine on them. And right here, this is it. This was the mission to come out here. This was the excuse, was to come deer hunting, but that wasn't. It was all about coming out to enjoy the journey. And what better way to come out and hunt and then use the meat? This is our first little bit of it, but I have a bunch in the cooler. Paul's gonna probably take more than half, and then I got a few friends I'm gonna give away meat to here in California. Last year I found out that they were talking about eradicating all the deer off the island, helicopters, sharpshooters, and that to me is something very similar and familiar because they do that in Hawaii, and I hate to see it. They come and eradicate a bunch of sheep off the landscape, and it's just, to me, is a bunch of wasted protein, and they were talking about doing that out here. So for us to be able to come out and hunt them and help with the deer population, also use the resource and kind of open that up to people's eyes of like how good the meat is, and it's right here walking in their backyards. I see it as like everyone counts, right? So at least we got our one, and I'm just blessed for the journey, honestly. Like, that's just kind of an excuse for me to come out here and feel good story, but I just like living. This is the way I like living, and happy to enjoy it with good friends for sure.
Okay, so we're entering into the final stretch of our day with the Conservancy. We've covered a lot of topics so far, but we still have a few good ones left. Check these out.
Endemic, native. At what point, because I looked this up. I looked up the island fox. They're native, right?
They're endemic.
Tell me the difference.
Yeah, sure. So native means that they naturally occur in the area.
Yeah.
There's a subcategory of native called endemic, which means that they're only found in a geographical location. So you have two levels of endemic here. There's species that you only find on the Channel Islands generally,
Yep.
and then there's species that you only find on Catalina Island. The Catalina Island fox is only found on Catalina Island.
But it was brought here.
That's not completely known.
It's not?
No.
Okay. I looked it up on NPS National Park. It said the Chumash? The Chumash
No,
people brought
the
island fox.
Chumash were the northern Channel Islands.
Okay.
The indigenous inhabitants of this island are the Tongva Gabrielino.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know how the fox got here?
We don't know exactly. We know that when they got here, which was about 10,000 years ago, but we don't know exactly how they got here.
The Catalina Island fox is considered endemic, and scientifically it is. But it almost certainly got here because humans brought it. It definitely didn't swim across the ocean. That matters because the argument often hinges on what is natural to the island. Almost nothing here is untouched by human hands.
Is it possible that over time, the mule deer that are here adapt to where they kind of become their own thing if they were here for, say, 1,000 years?
1,000 years?
I'm just, whatever. 500, I don't know.
Yeah, if you separate them long enough, after 1,000 years, they could become their own thing.
If we brought them back to the mainland,
Mm-hmm.
would they be able to survive on the mainland, or would they be like, what's all this? You know what I mean?
They would probably not survive on the mainland. That's what when deer are translocated from other islands, they've tried this before. It did not work out very well for those deer.
This isn't sentimental, it's biological. Isolation creates divergence. Whether or not the state wants to call Catalina's deer a subspecies, they've lived here long enough to start becoming something distinct.
What criteria is set to determine a species, a subspecies, non-native, native kind of thing? Who gets to determine that? When something's been there almost 100 years, we're getting close to that now. It's a long time. There's adaptation that has happened at some level with the plants, the deer, the buffalo. They've all adapted in some way or another. So do you just all of a sudden, because you don't like it, get rid of that chance to be a subspecies? And she's right. I don't think the deer would ever survive over here. It's been tried before with, I believe it was Angel Island, Farallones out there, and they don't last long. I mean, our deer are not going to be able to handle predators. There are still instincts there, but they're not going to know how to avoid that.
They're not.
And the cars doing 60 miles an hour, they're going to stand right in the road. And
these deer have been on the island for a century. They've been there 100 years, right? It's not like they were just brought on the island a few weeks ago. I mean, they've been there 100 years. They're part of the island.
So, yeah, they're adapted to Catalina Island, so why doesn't that make them a subspecies of deer?
If you could push a button and say, you pick the number, 500 deer, whatever, 300 deer, we're only on the island and that's it. And it could be kept at that level. That would be better? Would you be happy with that?
If you could maintain it down to a very low level,
yeah.
I'm just completely unconvinced you can maintain it down to a low level.
I got you.
Yeah, all of the information I've seen has indicated the opposite.
Right. Okay.
And that's where I'm at. It's not that I hate deer.
Yeah.
I love deer.
So this is really interesting. I asked her if we could keep the herd down to a specific number, whatever it is. Would she be okay with that? She's fine with that, but she doesn't think it's possible because the hunting program, in her view, hasn't been able to accomplish that. But the record tells a different story because the Conservancy never implemented the kind of hunting program that would reduce the deer herd.
Why have previous CEOs, I believe they were CEOs, Ann Muscat, Tony Buderich, said that, I guess Ann came up with a number of 604 was the carrying capacity, and Tony said 500. What's that based on, and why is that different now?
So Ann Muscat was CEO quite a while ago now.
Actually, Ann Muscat was CEO less than 10 years ago. She served as CEO from 2003 until her retirement in October 2016.
Yep.
And they were going after basically this idea that you could reduce the herd with hunting, and it just turned out it didn't work.
Yep.
So they were trying to drive the population down, and that's what the Conservancy's been trying to do for the last 20 years, is drive the population down using recreational hunting.
Yep.
And it quite frankly didn't work.
Right.
So it was like some basic idea of modeling, hey, like maybe this can be reduced.
Yeah.
So the last 20 years was a test on that.
Yep.
We were at 1,800 deer. And then Tony Budrovich, I think, I don't know where he got that number from, quite frankly. I think it was just a little bit of
It was 500 and the other one was 604.
Yeah, it was just kind of an offhand comment is likely where it's coming from.
We've worked with a variety of people in the scientific community, and they have established that the island would probably carry very easily about 500 deer. That seems like the right number for 48,000 acres, some populated, some not.
All right, so here's another one of those moments. What's going on? Tony Budrovich was the CEO 3 years ago. He said he worked with the scientific community to come up with a carrying capacity of the island. He said it's very easily 500 deer. The CEO before him said 600 deer. I've got a lot of questions. Dr. Denhart states that, she's been there for 4 years, but the scientists for decades before that, they've all come to the same conclusion. Why do we have video testimony of the previous CEO who served from 2016 to 2022 after Ann Muscat saying that they've worked with the scientific community and they've come up with the carrying capacity on the island? But now, in 2025, 2024, under this new leadership, they're saying that the number of deer that can be on the island is 0. Where does that come from? These are more inconsistencies, and I think we deserve some answers. This doesn't seem like an offhand comment to me. What do you think?
In my opinion, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, we ought to find out how many deer are on the island, and then what's the real number of deer that can coexist with native plants on the island. Yeah. Figure out what that number is. Because there is a number out there, and it's not 0. Yeah. As we talked about earlier, the 2 previous Conservancy CEOs, one threw out, I think it was 500, the other one threw out like 800. They had a number at that time.
So why not some deer? To me, that seems like what people are, that's the happy medium. That's what people are looking for. The extreme that we saw over and over and over again, and there's even pictures and stuff of the helicopters and people shooting them and all that. That was too much for a lot of people. Hard to handle. And I get that, and I'm on that side of that. I don't want them all to be gone. I'll give you the last word on that, and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the science has shown that you can't keep a small population of deer on the island. They're going to rebound very quickly. We started with 12, right?
Yep.
And in 1930, 1948, newspaper articles about how there's just too many deer on the landscape, right?
Do you know how many they had? Did they have any idea?
Over 2,000. So what we do know is that in order to preserve the biodiversity here, reduce the risk of wildfire, and make this island have more water resources on the island, we need to restore it. And we can't do anything while the deer are present. And that's what we've learned over the decades. Listen, I've been working on this for 4 years, but there are lots of scientists who worked on this for decades before me. Mm-hmm. We all keep coming to the same conclusion.
We've worked with a variety of people in the scientific community, and they have established that the island would probably carry very easily about 500 deer. That seems like the right number for 48,000 acres, some populated, some not.
And none of these scientists are anti-hunting by any means. Mm-hmm. I think at the end of the day, there's so much that this organization wants to do for the public when it comes to hiking, biking, and seeing just like these amazing resources that inspire a lot of people that then they've been put on hold for decades. The Conservancy has been trying to move forward. We have a nursery, which we can do like a few little outplantings, but that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of this island. Like, our resources are stuck. We want to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it really matters, because this island is much more accessible than the other Channel Islands. And I think that's the reason. Yeah. Because like the inspiration that we see when we bring kids over here when we bring all of our partners from Conservation Corps Long Beach or River Mountains Conservancy, all the tours that we do with all of these different groups. And like I said, I bring hunters out, I talk to everyone. And that look in their eyes when we go to White's Exclosure and they see what is truly at risk here, it moves me every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I am definitely not anti-hunting. There's a lot of really great hunting opportunities on the mainland. But at the end of the day, it's not the Conservancy trying to stop hunters. It's just really hard to hunt on an island. And it will always be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't keep shutting down all of our programs to support, you know, this hunting season that hasn't really proven to reduce deer populations. With that being said, we're partnering with a lot of other groups.
Yep.
Just trying to open up the tent even more and more to see if there's anything left. We're kind of like right at the edges of, is there anything left here? Because what we want to do is restoration. That's all.
And I really appreciate this opportunity to be out here in the interior and pick your brain for several hours and have you bring us around. And I think it's gonna do a lot. And hopefully also for the locals, they understand that you're open to conversations.
So that's the end of our time with the Conservancy. That's the end of the interview. And when I left the interview, as you can see, it looks like I was pretty happy. I thought we had a good time. I thought we made some progress. Like I said before, that progress was based on us having a meeting that was then canceled. They said they were going to go in a different direction, but we were going to meet with conservation orgs and other scientists and other hunting orgs to really talk about a better hunting program. I had high hopes for more collaboration between the locals on the island and the Conservancy. There's a lot of friction there. That's not going to happen. So let me bring you up to date from what happened from then, October 2024, up until now. Some things have changed. One thing we really didn't talk about this in this documentary is the Conservancy has, up and through 2024, they've been applying for a permit to eradicate the deer. And that permit was called a scientific collection permit, an SCP permit. That's up to CDFW to approve. So last year in 2024, coincidentally, there was a bill going through the California legislature, and that bill was about restoration. I remember seeing it. There was a few questions I had. I actually brought it up to the Conservancy, and they didn't really have too much to say about it. Well, that bill passed, and what that bill does is it creates an RMP, a restoration management permit. Now in 2025, so when the Conservancy said that they were going to go in a different direction, this is that different direction. That bill was passed, and now they are applying to eradicate the deer using an RMP permit. The RMP permit is a much lower bar as compared to an SCP permit. The SCP permit is, a higher bar, requires more science, a lot more hurdles that go through. The RMP is much, much lower. That's the process they're going through now. It still needs to be approved by CDFW. But here's what's really interesting about it. And this is, I guess, just a theory. A lot of people have brought this up to me. I think it's a little more of a coincidence. I'm not sure. When looking at this bill and who supported it, we found members of the Conservancy strategy team, a lobbyist who was testifying in support of this bill to get passed. And we also found the Wine Institute, who basically represents the wine industry in California, testifying to get this bill passed as well. Now, is that a coincidence? I don't know. It's kind of easy to connect the dots there. I'm sure there's a lot more to it, but that's the story. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew that. Again, this goes back to CDFW. They still need to approve this. So we're going to do what we can to make our argument to CDFW that the Conservancy hasn't done enough work. In fact, I don't think, and after watching this documentary, you might feel the same way, I don't think they've been honest about everything. When you look at the population counts. I don't know if it's more about honesty or if it's about doing the best that they can. I think it's really important that we know exactly how many deer are on that island. Not because we just want a general idea, it's because the Conservancy wants to eradicate and leave those deer to rot, every single one of those deer. I'd like to know exactly how many deer that is. I think that's really important. Of course, if that number is much lower, as we discussed, that kind of shows the hunting program has worked, and the Conservancy's narrative, it goes away. This whole thing gets shut down. Now, the second part is the hunting program. Do I think they've been honest about that? Absolutely not. There's no way that they have the same records that I have, because I got the records from them. I'm looking at the PLM reports that they write up, that they submit to CDFW. Everybody has access to that. There's no way that they can look at that data and know how many hunters have been on the island every year, how many tags have been allocated every year, what the success rates, all the stuff that we went over, and say that they've tried hunting and it's just not succeeding at lowering that population. I don't think they've been honest about that. This is the end of the documentary. There's so many things we couldn't show you, but we did the best we could to make it as short as possible and get across, I think, the core elements that we felt were most important to this documentary and to this issue. So if this is something that you care about, if you don't want to see the deer eradicated from the island, if you think there is a better way, if you think the deer can exist on the island with the plants, with the vegetation, with the endemic species, with the native species, with the people, if you think those deer have a home there and there's a way to figure that out, then I urge you to take action. Again, this decision is in the hands of CDFW, and you can reach out to CDFW. Check out this link, this QR code right here. That'll take you there where you can reach them and make your voice heard. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoyed this.
I'm Wendy Hernandez. I've grown up here on the island since I was in the 2nd grade, raised all my kids here, and I'm one of the founding members of the Coalition to Save the Catalina Island Deer.
Hi, my name is Jessica Romero. I've lived here on Catalina for 10 years.
Hi, my name's Roberta Black, owner of Catalina Lodge.
I believe the mule deer have a home on Catalina Island.
We believe that the mule deer have a home here on Catalina Island.
I believe the mule deer definitely have a home on Catalina Island.
A couple of the biologists for the Conservancy wanted to take over the hunting program, so 2009 and 2010 they took over the guided hunting part of it, but they just didn't fill the spots. It was kind of not ran as, I'm guessing, as professionally as we were doing, because I was told that by a couple of our hunters who did go. So one of my hunters who had hunted with us previously was called by a game warden after his hunt in 2010, and the warden asked him some questions, said, "Hey, I see you went out there and you hunted with the Conservancy and you filled your buck tag, your either sex tag." He goes, "Oh yeah, I got a nice 4x4. He goes, "Well, the best deer I've shot on in Catalina." And then the warden said, "I also see that you took a doe." And he goes, "No, I didn't shoot a doe." He goes, "I had a tag, but I didn't fill it." Well, the warden figured out something was going on, and that tag had been filled, but it wasn't filled by the hunter. It was filled by someone from the Conservancy. And it wasn't just that tag. There was, I guess, a few of them.